Howdy folks, and welcome back to World of Warships with Rear Admiral Jingles, and after yesterday's somewhat unorthodox World of Tanks video, it's back to our regular scheduled programming. Today's World of Warships video, featuring Steel Wolf X in the American Tier 10 battleship, the Montana, is all about the value of knowing when to quit. Before we get started, and I did mention this in a previous World of Warships video, but I have recently installed the official World of Warships mod pack. There's a link down below in the video description for it, if you don't already have it installed, and you see something in this video that you think might prove useful. Specifically, I'm talking about the two timers at the top of the screen to the left and right of the score markers and the cap point control markers. At the moment they're blank because nobody has sunk anything and nobody has capped anything, but pay attention to those timers when the situation changes, because they're going to tell you exactly how long your team has to win, or the enemy team has to win, based on the current amount of caps controlled by either team and the current number of ships sunk. And I find this sort of information to be very, very useful. It is of course something that you can estimate for yourself based on experience from playing the game, but it doesn't hurt to have the exact numbers right there on the screen, just to take the guesswork out of it. You're not going to have to wait too long for the action to start in this game. There is an enemy Shimakaze who's rushing the Alpha cap and is about to find out the hard way that there's a Yu Yang in there with him. Getting into a gunfight with a Yu Yang when you're in Shimakaze is not advised. And of course the Yu Yang has almost certainly used his radar, so the Shimakaze can't go undetected. He's trying to leap into cover behind the island there, but there was just too much fire coming in. Got taken out by the Hindenburg. So, good start. Particularly if you're in a battleship, and Steel Wolf is in a battleship. That's one very nasty enemy destroyer that he doesn't have to worry about anymore. The Shimakaze did manage to get some torpedoes away at least, and they almost certainly have the range. But the Yu Yang spotted them, so they're nice and visible, and it shouldn't be too difficult to avoid them. What that Shimakaze did succeed in doing, however, was to chase the friendly Yu Yang out of the Alpha cap, and he doesn't appear to be any great rush to get back in there and take it. He seems to be more preoccupied in sitting in the channel to the west of the cap and attempting to hit that Frederick the Great with his deep-water torpedoes, which is kind of a problem, because the enemy team have capped Charlie, and there is an enemy destroyer in Bravo. What's annoying is that there's a Cleveland who could be radaring Bravo right now and lighting up the enemy destroyer in there for the Minotaur, who's parked to the island to the south of Bravo and just waiting for the opportunity to delete an enemy destroyer. But what the Cleveland appears to be doing, as Steel Wolf unleashes a very, very useful looking broadside in the direction of the enemy Yamato. Yep, that wasn't bad. What the Cleveland appears to be doing is waiting until he's got a line of sight and can actually shoot at the enemy destroyer himself. Which is far too late, because there is a Yu Yang inside that cap circle. The Cleveland has just radared him after he's capped and while he's on his way out, when it's far too late because the damage has already been done, and the Yu Yang is only going to be vulnerable for a couple of seconds. Remember guys, if you do have radar, it's not all just for you. It can be very effective, even if you are not able to take advantage of targets that have been spotted by radar. Park your radar cruiser behind an island, right next to a cap circle, fire up the radar, and other ships on your team can use it to sink whatever it is that you've detected. So thanks to the Cleveland being a little selfish, or perhaps just not paying attention, the enemy team now hold two of the caps, and the Yu Yang has gotten away pretty much scot-free. And that is going to come back to bite that Cleveland in the arse, because while at the moment he is attempting to redeem himself, because the friendly Yu Yang still is showing no interest whatsoever in capping Alpha, the Cleveland is. Unfortunately, the Yu Yang that he detected too late with his radar has pulled a hard left turn after exiting the cap at B, and is now spotting the Cleveland. And as Steel Wolf scores his first citadel of the game against the enemy Hindenburg, that Yu Yang is basically directing the fire of a whole bunch of enemy ships at the Cleveland, sitting in open water in the middle of the cap. And American light cruisers spotted in open water with no island cover, particularly with Yamatos, Frederick the Greats, and Yu Yang's shooting at them aren't going to last very long. Ironically, it is in fact going to be the Yu Yang that the Cleveland allowed to escape who's going to kill him, because those deep water torpedoes get spotted very late and take no prisoners. On the bright side, at least Steel Wolf got advance notice that the torpedoes were there, thanks to the Cleveland being sunk by them. Now at this point, Steel Wolf is actually capping, yes, in a Tier 10 battleship. However, take a look at those timers at the top of the screen. Assuming nothing else changes, the enemy team is going to win in just over 7 minutes. Steel Wolf unleashes a salvo against the enemy Buffalo, scores another Citadel, good stuff, but didn't sink him. Meanwhile, the friendly Yu Yang has finally realised, perhaps because he was being encouraged by Steel Wolf's MAC pings, that he's of much more immediate use to the team in this cap circle, defending it from the enemy Yu Yang, who he did spot and who has been forced to smoke up. Dropping his own smoke screen, the friendly Yu Yang is also providing concealment for Steel Wolf's Montana, because he's going to have to turn. He's not going to be able to continue capping. He's got to get some solid cover between that very angry looking Yu Yang shaped smokescreen over there, so he doesn't end up getting torpedoed in the same way that the Cleveland was. Pulling this turn, of course, means he has to give broadside to a whole bunch of very angry looking enemy battleships, and if not for the smokescreen dropped by the friendly Yu Yang, yep, those are the torpedoes that he knew was coming. If not for the smokescreen dropped by the friendly Yu Yang, and the fact that the friendly Yu Yang forced the enemy Yu Yang to smoke up and drop visibility, he would have probably taken a lot of damage from those enemy battleships to the north while pulling this manoeuvre. So for the moment, he's reasonably safe. Would be real nice to sink something, however, because the enemy team have almost double the points thanks to controlling 2 of the caps for the majority of the game, and are going to win in just under 6 minutes. So sinking something, like that Buffalo, has bought Steel Wolf's team some more time. Unfortunately, Buffalo died before any of his shots arrived, and firing did give his position away, and that Yamato was looking to score some damage before he dies. And the shots are incoming, and yeah, that could have been quite nasty. But things are going to get a lot worse before they start getting any better. They've just lost their Minotaur, as Steel Wolf fires off a couple of shots at the enemy Zhao, which means the enemy team have increased their lead to almost triple the points score of Steel Wolf's team, and now have just 5 minutes left to win. And this is where things start to get really interesting. If I can direct your attention to the map, there is a friendly Alsace, the French Tier 9 battleship, who is attempting to cap Bravo. I don't know if that's what he's attempting to do, but it's what's happening. Unfortunately, that's putting him in torpedo range of a Hindenburg, backed up by a Kutuzov. And since the Alsace only has 380mm guns, the Hindenburg can actually bow tank him without fear of his bows being overmatched by the Alsace's main battery guns, which has allowed him to get close enough to sink the Alsace with his torpedoes. Oh, and they've just lost the Tirpitz as well, which means the enemy team now only has 3.5 minutes to win. However, there is a ray of light at the end of the tunnel, because while the Alsace was suiciding into the Hindenburg and the Kutuzov in Bravo, the friendly Yu Yang has found himself an enemy Yu Yang to play with, and appears to have the advantage because he can get all of his guns firing and the enemy Yu Yang cannot. Of course, neither of these two guys can torpedo each other, and it was perhaps lucky that Steel Wolf's shots were occluded by the island over there, because he probably stood just as big a chance of hitting the friendly Yu Yang with these 16-inch guns in that kind of close-range engagement as hitting the enemy Yu Yang. But finally, we have a couple of kills to our name. The enemy Yu Yang is dead, the friendly Yu Yang has survived, and the enemy Tirpitz has been sunk. And that has reset the "you are about to lose" timer from just over 3.5 minutes to 4.5 minutes. It's still not much breathing space. They're still going to need to either cap something or start sinking a lot more enemy ships, but they have bought themselves an extra minute in which to do it. So as Steel Wolf manoeuvres to attempt to actually start having some kind of influence on the outcome of this battle, because he hasn't really done a huge amount just yet, there's another development taking place once again in Bravo at the centre of the map. There's an enemy Kutuzov in there, remember, and he's pushing the location of the friendly Yu Yang, who did take a lot of damage in that close-range gunfight with the enemy Yu Yang. The Kutuzov, remember, is a radar cruiser and has 152mm guns, a lot of them, with a 19-kilometer range. It's not the Kutuzov who's going to get that Yu Yang, however. It's the enemy Xianyang, the Tier 8 Pan-Asian destroyer, who managed to kill him while remaining unspotted. Robbed the Kutuzov of the kill, but it has made him a sitting duck for the friendly Hindenburg. So that wasn't a completely points-neutral trade. They've lost the destroyer but sank a cruiser. A cruiser kill's worth more than a destroyer kill, but the difference in points is fairly negligible. They're still going to need to do much, much better. Step forth, the enemy Hindenburg, who is only too happy to oblige. This is a suicide move. The Hindenburg is never going to survive a crossfire from 2 Tier 10 battleships, particularly when one of them is the Yamato. But he did it so he could get his torpedoes away. Now maybe that was a good move for the Hindenburg, but it wasn't necessarily a good move for his team, because he did get his torpedoes away, and he is going to do a huge amount of damage to the Yamato. But he's not going to sink him. Now, the Yamato is of course flooding, and so has to use his damage control. So the Zhao over there is trying to capitalise on that by spamming him with high explosive to set fires that he can't extinguish, and forcing the Yamato to turn to attempt to avoid the torpedoes means he's giving broadside to the enemy Tirpitz and the enemy Republique. So while the Hindenburg didn't get the kill, he did do a huge amount of damage, and more or less directly contributed to the Yamato's death. So Steelwolf's team is now going to lose in 2.5 minutes, but the Zhao over there is not in a good spot. Steelwolf has killed the throttle because he wants to make sure he sinks this guy. Which way is the Zhao going to turn? Steelwolf can't overmatch his bow armour in the same way that the Yamato could, but he can still do a fair amount of armour-piercing damage, and he's holding his fire and just taking the hits from the Zhao and waiting for him to commit to the turn so he can give him a damn good paddling with all these 16-inch guns. There it goes. Finally, our first kill. Right. Hasn't bought us much time, but Steelwolf's team now has, once again, 2.5 minutes to pretty much sink every enemy ship in order to win this game. The enemy team just have too many points. The only way Steelwolf's team can win this is by sinking everything. And it's at this point where the enemy teams start to throw, starting with the Xianyang, who is never going to survive this, but just wants to get his torpedoes away against a Tier 10 battleship. What he has in fact done is given Steelwolf's team even more breathing space without doing a single piece of damage to Steelwolf's Montana. At this point, Steelwolf's team finally have the numbers advantage. Taking any of the enemy-held caps is not going to win them the game. All it's going to do is buy them more breathing space and extend the length of time it's going to take for the enemy team to win. Which, by the way, is now just over 2 minutes. Which means that Tirpitz and that Republique and that Richelieu, all the way up to the northeastern corner of the map, just have to stay alive for another 2 minutes, and they've won. Now that may be easier said than done for the Tirpitz and the Republique, because they are kind of caught in a crossfire. There's an Ibuki down to the south there who should be raining high explosive down on one or both of them. And Steelwolf is in a pretty strong position here. The same cannot be said for the friendly Hindenburg, who appears to be determined to throw the game. I don't know what it is about the Hindenburgs in this match, but they all just seem to be determined to suicide against top-tier battleships, just in order to get their torpedoes away. And while statistically that may have worked out reasonably well for the enemy Hindenburg, because he didn't land almost all of his torpedoes on that Yamato, not so much for the friendly Hindenburg, who has in fact missed both the Tirpitz and the Republique with all of his torpedoes and has succeeded only in dying. The enemy team are now going to win in under a minute. The Khabarovsk is attempting to cap Charlie over there, but all that's going to succeed in doing is delaying the inevitable. Luckily, Steelwolf is in a Montana, and the Montana has the heaviest broadside in the game, including its secondaries. which means that Tirpitz is so incredibly screwed. The secondaries will finish him off. He's managed to avoid the Tirpitz's torpedoes. I don't know what it is about guys in this game who just seem to be determined to get their German torpedoes to hit something, even if it means losing their ship. The Tirpitz is down. The Khabarovsk is flipping Charlie. But with less than a minute to go before the enemy team wins, this is pretty much going to come down to the results of the fight between Steelwolf's Montana and that enemy Republic. And Steelwolf just doesn't have the time to do anything fancy like slow down and ensure that he has his armour angled. This is pretty much going to just be a straight-up brawl between two Tier 10 battleships. Now, the Republic has bigger guns than the Montana, and that did hurt. But the Montana has more of them, and I think he hurt the Republic more. More importantly, coming around the side of this island, he is now starting to angle his armour. Something that the Republic player is not doing. Now, before you all start face-planting your keyboard at the stupidity of the Republic player, bear in mind it's 40 points in a domination battle for a battleship kill. And that's why he's keeping all of his guns firing at Steelwolf. His team nearly has 960 points, and a battleship kill at that point would end the game with an enemy victory. But you have to actually kill the battleship that you're shooting at. And he very nearly does, which explains why he makes this decision. But the thing about very nearly sinking an enemy battleship is that it's really just a kind of fancy apologetic way of saying not sinking an enemy battleship. And the Republic did not sink an enemy battleship, and Steelwolf did. So, that just leaves the Richelieu on the enemy team, all the way over there, who is currently flipping back Capture Point Charlie after that Khabarovsk managed to take it. Now, taking the cap over there was a very good move from the Khabarovsk, because they would probably have lost to points by now if he hadn't. Flipping the cap, which is what the Richelieu is doing, as he chases the Khabarovsk down, not such a good idea, because pushing deeper into the cap after the Khabarovsk, who I'm not sure is actually detected at this point, is just putting them in the path of the Khaba's torpedoes. The Ibuki is shooting at the Richelieu, which is a bloody dangerous move for the Ibuki because he doesn't have a huge amount of health. And it's 35 points for a cruiser kill, 30 points for a destroyer kill. The enemy team can still win. With a kill and the amount of time remaining, the Richelieu can win this match, but it is far safer for him to simply hide behind the multitude of islands over there, rather than continuing to push, because he only has to stay alive for less than a minute, and he's won. Now, at the point where he started chasing south into Charlie in pursuit of that Khabarovsk over there, it probably seemed like a very good idea, because there were 3 ships left alive on his team. Now, not so much, but he still only has to stay alive for another 40 seconds to win, and Steelwolf's team must kill him. They are never going to win on points. The enemy team are now up to 980 points, 20 more points to go. Less than 30 seconds for that Richelieu to stay alive, and he's won this game. And he just may have done it if he hadn't caught his ship on the island there, slowing him down and making this, well, pretty much a formality. Oh, how did it all go so horribly, horribly wrong? Well, it turns out some people just don't know when to quit. I, however, do. So that's it for today. Steelwolf, thank you for sending that one in. You won that one by the skin of your teeth. Everybody else, I hope you enjoyed it. And as always, take care, and I'll catch you next time.